I read this crazy fact today that 76% of people don't exercise in winter. Now, I honestly have no idea where that study came from, how believable it is, how legit it is, but I do think it's a very interesting observation nonetheless on people's relationship with exercise and even healthy eating to a degree, just generally making good choices for themselves, and how it can be so dependent on the time of year, the season, our relationship with like other parts of our life, and almost this disconnect of it being a habit and this lack of importance of it as a habit, because people get lost in this idea that it's the intricacies of their approach or their plan that's the problem. So is it that I'm not following this specific magic diet? Is it that I'm not taking this particular supplement? Is it that I need to do bicep curls sat on a bench versus stood up? We get lost in all those details, and then we lose the big picture, which is, are you doing what you're doing consistently? Because if you just made okay or like good, let's say good food choices, and good being down the scale, down the river from great and excellent. So good food choices, we exercise pretty well, a bit of strength training, maybe a bit of cardio, tried to make progress each time, and we did that 3 or 4 times a week, and we just did that consistently with no more complexities, you would get really, really great, you would get great results over time, genuinely. And yeah, maybe it wouldn't be as good as it could have been. Maybe you'll hit some plateaus, but generally you will be ahead of the majority of the population in terms of how you feel, how you look, your energy, your body composition, if you were to apply those things consistently. Now, the problem that I see, and the reason that I thought this 76% was so interesting, is that it really highlights the idea that we see fitness and health, and whether we're talking diets, workout plans, gadgets, gizmos, supplements, we often see them as winning streaks. And what I mean by that is that when we talk about the last time we were in shape or the last time we tried, we see it as a block of time, and we almost put value on that time. And I hear it a lot when I speak to people on calls that are going to become potential clients, or we're reviewing clients past so that we can formulate like a good system for them. We use this language of, oh, well, last year I managed to stay consistent for 6 months. Or when I did this, I did it for 3 months, or I managed to keep this up for a year. So yeah, it's this almost like this winning streak mentality where we see it more as how long can we possibly keep this up versus this is just what I need to do for the rest of my life to stay in great shape. I believe if people tried to break away from that on and off mentality where sometimes we're on and sometimes we're off, and we tried to exist in what I call the grey area, and some of you might have heard me speak about this on social media before, moving away from black or white thinking, say maybe black is completely on all the time and white is completely doing nothing, and actually trying to exist in this grey area in between where we're just constantly trying to keep the flame alive. We're constantly trying to put 1 foot forward rather than it being 10 foot steps forward or 10 steps backwards. And when we do this, it means that A, we maintain the results that we've worked for, or we gradually progress towards greater results because we just keep going. There's never really a back step, or at least a significant one. There's always this forward momentum. Some days it's 1 step, some days it's 5 steps, some days maybe it's just a tiptoe forward, but we do something and embrace that. And then the other thing is that we can solidify it as a habit. Habits are going to be your most powerful asset in your armory when it comes to not just getting in shape, but actually maintaining it for the rest of your life. Because if it doesn't become a habit, if it doesn't become a deep-seated behavior and a way of life, you're always going to have this on and off mentality. this idea of, oh, when I finish this diet and go back to normal, or when I finish this 12 weeks of training and go back to normal, or I'm going to stop for the winter and then when it gets to summer, I'll start again. And when summer's over, this when and this time blocked mentality around fitness. When you move away from that, suddenly it's just what you do every single day. But it's very, very difficult to do this if you have that mentality of it always having to be perfect all the time and it having to be this rigid, exacting way, because you're going to make it very easy for yourself to fall off. So I really implore you to explore that middle area and something in Vibrant People we call imperfect action. So this idea of, in any scenario, whatever obstacle comes up, maybe it's time, maybe it's location, maybe it's energy, stress, any obstacle that comes up, there is always a decision to be made within certain parameters. So maybe the best decision in that situation isn't the best decision in the grand scale of life, but there is still a choice, and you don't have to make the worst choice just because the situation, the time, the energy, the stress levels, whatever the obstacle is, it doesn't mean that you have to relinquish responsibility and make the worst possible choice. So that imperfect action is really about making the best possible choice you can in any given situation. And what that's going to allow you to do is that it's going to allow you to take action in almost any scenario. It's going to allow you to continue to move forward in almost any scenario. It's going to allow you to keep those habits alive. And it's going to break that pattern of on plan, off plan. Now, this links to the 76% of people don't exercise in winter, because what typically happens is we find people get in shape over summer, for summer. And then when it gets to winter, less time outside, there's more, I guess, more comfort food around. It's raining, so maybe you don't want to travel to the gym or wherever you work out. Obviously, if you work out with home with your body weight, not really a big issue, which is one of the benefits. But there's just various reasons why winter makes it more difficult for people, at least within their mind, to actually implement what they need to do. And the problem with that is, if we constantly stop every season and do nothing, we're going to find ourselves never moving forward. So we might take a step forward during summer, and then we take a step back during winter, and we just constantly repeat that cycle for the rest of our lives. Now, if you can even just maintain a semblance of what you were doing in summer during winter, I'm not even saying attack it with the full force that you maybe did in summer. Imagine how easy it would be to then step back into it when comes spring or when comes summertime. It would make it infinitely easier, and you would also continue to make progress, even if you just held the line in winter. Imagine, let's say we improve by 20% in summer, and then in winter, rather than just going back to zero, we just hold the line at 20%. We're not even saying we have to make progress, we're just holding the line. Imagine then when you went back into the next season, how easier it would be. You'd be able to step back into it easily. You wouldn't have to redefine the habit. You wouldn't feel out of shape, and you could just continue to make progress and stack on that. And then even better, you can just actually just continue to do what you were doing before and continue to make progress, because there's absolutely no reason why you should stop in winter other than your preconceptions about what winter is. Maybe it's that Christmas is for indulging, Christmas is for relaxing. Well, Christmas is one day of the year, so you don't need to sabotage all of your efforts just because there's this one day of the year that is maybe about a bit of indulgence, which, by the way, if you do indulge on Christmas Day, it will make absolutely no difference to your results so long as you've been consistent for the rest of the year. In fact, you could do that once a month and it would make absolutely no difference to your results. So hold that thought, guys. Just going to wash the car and I'll be with you in a moment. I never really understood why people like to wash the car, but as I've got older, I actually really love it. I totally understand it now. There's something quite therapeutic about the process. One moment. Okay. So, to wrap things up, what I want you to do as we're moving from autumn into winter, I'd really like you to start thinking about how, if you are someone who typically falls off track or stops exercising during winter, this winter, I want that to be the last time. And I want you to really think about how you can do it differently this time and how you can keep the flame alive. Even if you do slightly do less than what you would usually do, let's just see how we can keep it going. Like, embrace that idea of imperfect action. Try to do the minimal viable action that requires you to move forward. And I think most importantly and quite directly, don't relinquish responsibility. Accept ownership of this. If you fall off track, it is your responsibility and you own that. And I think that's one of the biggest things about the festive season. There's almost this, we lose that responsibility a bit. We blame it on the season. We blame it on family. We blame it on social occasions. We blame it on the food that's around us, when ultimately every choice you make around exercise and food is on you and it's your decision. And I think just really being aware of that and recognizing that in any scenario, it's your choice. Like, you are the boss of your own life and you don't have to do anything for anyone. You can say no. You can say yes. You can make your own choices. You are most likely, listening to this, a grown adult. So remember that and own it and feel strong and be robust in the decisions that you make, and don't let people around you or the situations you find yourself in influence the things that you want for your life that are greater than that individual moment. Because I promise you this, you will forget that Christmas party on the 14th of December 2025, probably within a few weeks. But the actual state of your health, how you feel, your fitness, your energy, this will be around with you for the rest of your life. And that could have been the moment that threw you off track, that moment where you did fall off plan again. And it was 2025 was another year where you didn't figure this out and you had to start again in 2026. Imagine if you could get through the winter of 2025/26 and actually have never fallen off. You've kept it alive and you move into 26 as the first time you've ever actually sustained this, and that you haven't quit and that you just keep going. Imagine how good that would feel, not to mention that knock-on impact it's going to have to your habit building, your long-term health and fitness, your perspective of what it takes to be consistent and sustainable. So guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Have a fantastic day and I'll catch you soon.